Hello everyone, Debabrata once again, and today I'm planning to take a class on the long pending topic that is public static void main. What is the exact meaning of that? So it also came in my interview as well. Interviewer asked, means in my first interview, obviously, yeah. So in that interview, interviewer asked me about this question, like what is the meaning of public static void main string args? And it is one of the important interview questions as well. And even it can be asked during the Viva, even in your exam as well. So from the very first day, we are writing this line, public static void main string args. But at the first class, if you can remember, I have told you do not need to understand the meaning of that line, just write the program inside. But this is the time we have learned what do you mean by import java.util.star. We know what is the meaning of class, but we are still pending with this line. So today we will cover that, and alongside we will also try to take a look on the static and as well as the what is command line argument. So that is also involved with this line. So as a prerequisite, I can only say like, okay, it will be enough if you have an idea of class and object, how to write the class and object. So if you are following my playlist, then it is fine. If you are just new in this class, so if you have the idea of class and object, then it's fine. So topic one, today I'll be discussing probably four topics. So first thing is what is static, that we need to understand. After that, I'm coming to that line. First, individually, let me share what is the meaning of static. So let me create a class first by which I can give you the example of static. So let me create a class where I can write some class like static demo. And let me create a very simple example of a class and object scenario. So suppose let me create a class like static demo, but I'm not going to use static at first. First, I'm just writing something. Public static, suppose void main string args, a normal program. It is not like a static is written there, so do not need to take a look into that. It is just a normal program. So I can mention something called class, say bank or something. We are working with the bank thing from the very first class. So I can mean something like int b for say balance, another int a for age, say something like that. So I can create three object of this bank class. Suppose bank obj1 equals to new bank. Suppose I want to open three different accounts of this bank. Let me do that quickly. Bank obj2 new bank and bank obj3 new bank. After that, I can assign a few values like age is, suppose someone's age is 10, and some random values I'm giving. Do not concentrate on that. Suppose the bank balance is 1,000. Okay, something like that. So now obj2, obj3. So obj2a is suppose 20, and obj2b is variable is 2000. So if you have the basic idea of class and object, you can understand. So these variables will hold different values under different objects. So that is the concept of class and object. It can hold multiple values in the multiple objects. So the structure is same. All of them has two variables a and b, but the structure is same, but means compared to the object, in different object you can put different values. So that is the concept. So if I run suppose obj1.a, and with a space I can give suppose obj1.b. So I'm just going to print all of them. So let me print all of them. So this is a basic concept of a class. If you are having any doubts why the objects are holding different values, then I will request you to go through the first class of this object concept. So where I have introduced class and object. So it is a common phenomenon, and that is why we use class and object. So if I run, so obviously it should print 10 and 1000, 20 and 2000, and 30 and 3000. You can see it is the way. So now what is static? What is the role of static here? So static I have not introduced yet. So my plan is to show the easiest example of implementation of static. I have seen when I ask this question in the interview round to the candidates, so candidates always give some tough example to show the meaning of static, but I really do not understand why you are using tough logics or tough codes to prove the concept of static. It can be proved using the simple coding itself. So here you can see we have just used three variables. The class is made in a very simple way. I have just used two variables, int a and int b, and I have created different versions of that. So now let me prove the concept of static. Here I can only mention static int a. Static int a. So if I mention static int a, just I have introduced this. Now if I run the program, I have just added one word. So now if I run, you can see the changes made due to the static. So all of those first variable will be printed as 30. You can see. In the previous run, it was 10, 20, and 30. But when I defined that new word 30, I have just new word static. All of them made 30. I have just introduced one word, and you can see the changes. So what exactly happened? So if you introduce something called static, that means the variable will have only one version. So this a variable has only one version. So that means obviously previous means in the previous run, what was happening in the previous run, we were defining three objects, and three objects are separated. Three objects are separated. Simply they are separated. They are having the same property, but they are separated. But here, what is happening whenever I'm defining something at static? So they are saying they have some common part. They are having some common part. And that common part is the value a. The variable a is a common part. So in this part, a exists, the common part. So that you need to remember. So this a, if I define the a lies in this common part. So it means whatever you mean obj1 dot a or obj2 dot a or obj3 dot a, everything is the same variable. So you are just assigning something. Suppose if I'm writing some code like, suppose if I'm writing some code like x equals to 10, after that x equals to 20, after that x equals to 30. And now if you print the same variable like system.out.println sop x, so what will be printed? So 30 will be printed obviously because it is the latest value. So here as well, we are doing the same. We are using the same variable, the first variable. First, we are assigning at a equals to 10. After that, a equals to 20, a equals to 30. So static means one version. Static means one version of one version. That's all. So irrespective to the object, if you create multiple objects as well, the variable will be only one. It cannot have multiple versions like b. B can have multiple version object to object. So in the first object, b's value is 1000. In the second object, the value of b is 2000. In the third object, the value of b is 3000. But a, whenever I'm defining it static, a cannot hold different values. When it was not static, it can hold different values, 10, 20, 30. But whenever I define static, it cannot hold different version. So whenever I'm assigning obj1 dot a equals to 10, that means all the variables. It is not all the variables. The a variable become 10. So it is only one variable. Obj2 equals to 20. So a variable become 20. So these names creating actually confusions. So what we do in industry, we do not write obj1 dot a. We give the class name. If you write obj1 dot a, it will work. It will print, but it will create a confusion. It seems like a has different versions, but it is not. A has only one version. So you can write something called bank.a. If you want, if you can remember, if you are not confused, then you can write obj1 dot a, obj2 dot a, obj3 dot a. Basically, all of them are together. They are having the same version. It is not like b. B are having different versions. So you can have a b version in first object. You can have a b version in the second object. You can have a different version of b in the third object. but A is common. A is having one version whenever you defining static. Okay, previously it was different, but whenever you have defined it static, there is only one version of it. So if you are not got puzzled, or if you are not get confused, you can use obj1.a, obj2.a, obj3.a. Basically you are just calling the same variable. But again, if you are confused, or if you want to have a clear idea, so you can mention the class.a, because in one class you can have only one version of a. So that's the thing you need to know. And that is because of people say in static, we use static because we do not need to create the object, but that is not true. That is not the cause we are using static. We are using static because it is one version. We are getting one version of code. Okay. If you want to know the um, uh, means some examples of static, suppose in India, suppose there is a bank called SBI, so you can put the bank name as SBI, or any bank name, Bank of America, or anything. You can put the name inside the variable A. So whenever you decided to merge the bank with some other bank in the year of 2020, 2021, there were several mergers of bank have happened. So there is no need to change the bank name everywhere. So just change the name inside the variable. From SBI, you can make it some other bank name as well. So that's the thing. So for all the accounts holder of that bank, the balance will be different person to person, but the bank name will be static, and that will be common. If the bank name is changed, it will be changed for all of them, because there is only one variable. Account to account, they cannot have different version of A. So there will be only one version of A. And that is the use of static actually. So static doesn't mean constant. Some people are confused with static means constant. No, static doesn't mean constant. You can change the value. You can change the value, but that value will be applicable to all of them. And it is also some confusions are there with static. First thing is this one. People think static is constant. No, you can change the value, but you have the one version of value. Here as well, we are changing the value. First, I'm doing 10, then we are doing 20, then we are doing 30. So it is not constant. You have to understand. To make a variable constant, you have to use final. If you use final, then it will give some problem. Yes, it is saying cannot assign a value to final variable A. Final makes a variable constant. We have already discussed that in previous classes. But here it is static only. You can change, but that change will be applicable to all of the members. So that is the first thing you need to understand. So static doesn't make a variable constant. So there is a difference between static and final. And the second thing is you have to understand people, most of the time I got the answer, we use static because the cause is we do not need to define the object. No, it is the conclusion, it is not the cause. It is one version. That is why we can avoid the object thing when I call the variable. We can skip like obj1.a. We can skip the reference of object when I call the variable. But it is not like we do not need to define the object. You can see the other variable of the same class, we have to call it using the object reference. You have to give the object name. Here we can skip. So this is not the cause, it is the result. Because static is creating one version of variable, and it is it is the result. As a result, we can skip the reference like obj1.a. If you want, you can use, but it creates sometimes confusion. People think, the junior people, suppose you have written the code and you leave the company, you have joined some other company. So if someone comes new, for them it might be an illusion. Even sometimes after 2 or 3 classes, you can also, if I ask you in my offline classes, when I ask people like, okay, tell me the example of static, people get confused after 2 3 classes. So for a junior guy who joined new in the organization, if he or she checks your code, he or she probably get confused with this idea. They might think like obj1 is different, obj2 is different, obj3 is different for the variable A. It is different for the variable B, but it should be same for the variable A. So it is suggested You can write this, or if you are confident, you can. If you are not confident, if you are feeling confused, so it is better to give the class name. But it doesn't mean you do not need to define the object. You can see object is already defined at the top. So that's the thing. So now if I run this once again, just to check if everything going fine or not. So, okay, let me clear this drawing. Now, if I run this code, it will be something 30, 30, 30, the same value. And here it is 10,000, 2,000, and 3,000. Because the value of B will vary because it is still non-static. So something like that. It is the use of static. Okay. So if I go further, topic 2. So it is about the command line argument. So command line argument is a very interesting thing. When I started my Java coding, I used to do all the programs in the command line. So what is command line? So first, let me write a simple, very simple program here itself. So I can write, suppose I can print something hi, hello, or something like that. So we are used to write the programs in either online compiler or the compiler like Eclipse or the compiler like BlueJ. But when I was a student, we generally used to write the programs in normal notepad, and we used to run that using command prompt. Actually, these softwares also follow the same way. It creates a graphical interface on the top of those ancient or basic programming concepts. So I'll be showing you what are the exact thing we used to do at that time. So under C folder, suppose we have a folder like Java codes. Let me create a thing like a new folder called test. And under test, let me create a notepad file. New notepad. Just check how I'm writing this program. I can give the name like sample and .txt file. I have to remove that. And let me write sample.java. If you are not able to see that extension txt, probably you have to follow some Windows operation. So I forget. So there will be something called in view, or there is something. File name extension. You have to check it. If it is unchecked, you are not able to see that .txt. So it is a Windows functionality. Probably you know. If you do not know, just comment. Just write some comment in the comment section with your problems. Someone will guide you quickly. So anyway, so sample.java I have written. So I'm just going inside and let me write the same thing. The file name and the class name should be same. So here I'm writing class sample. The file name and the class name should be same. And after that, everything we write from the very first step, public static void main string args. So I'm showing you how command line works. So here I'm just writing a very simple program like system.out.println. Suppose hi Debabrata, something like that. I'm writing my name. Suppose I'm just saving it, Control S and closing it. So in sample.java, I have written the code. So how to run this? Let me open command prompt cmd. Let me type. So it will open DOS thing or the command prompt in a simple word. So you just need to know how to operate this command prompt. If you write cd/, you will be directly jump into you will go out of the folder structure. You will be inside C drive directly. Now, if you want to go inside one by one, so I have to write under C folder. You can see here under C program, the C folder, we have a folder like Java codes, and under that it is test. I can go one by one or I can jump directly as well. But for the timing, let me go one by one. CD Java codes. So we are under now Java codes. Now you can write CD test under test folder. So now you can see we are under test folder. If you want to go out, not directly into C drive, if you want to go out one by one, if you want to go to Java code folder, just follow cd dot. If you want to go uh, out into C drive directly, use cd/. Okay, so the same thing. But okay, let me jump into Java codes and again jump into cd test. So now we are under this folder. If you want to check what is there, you can type dir command and you can see there is one file created there probably. Yeah, sample.java. You can see the full list of the data. So previously when Windows, this graphics user or mouse or this keyboard didn't, mouse was not invented, people used to access Windows using this command prompt. There was no graphics. People used to do that by writing these commands. Okay. So anyway, so now I'm going to run this file or this program. We have to write Java C. It means Java compile, C for compile. And after that, you have to write the full name, sample.java. So Java C means compile and sample.java. If it has some error, it will show. If it doesn't have any error, it will just compile successfully. You can see no messages are shown. That means it is compiled successfully. Now how to run that? You have to write Java space sample. That's all. For compilation, you have to give the extension .java. Whatever I'm just doing, just blindly follow that and write any program. I will prefer to print a simple program first, just to print your name. And if that works, then we can modify, we can put some complicated thing inside that. So Java sample.java, it is used to compile. And here I'm writing Java sample. That means we do not need the extension to give. It means it will try to execute this code. If I enter, you can see it is printing hi Debabrata Guha. You can see that. So if it is working, that means we can run everything. And you can see a .java file is created, a .class file is created. It was not present before. Whenever I compile, this file appeared. Let me show you once again. So let me delete that. And if I compile once again, so this file will be created at the back, you can see. And this file is basically being called as a bytecode. And it is one of the important thing. So if I open the file with notepad, you cannot read the file because structure is not human readable. So it is basically bytecode. Now, if I delete this sample.java file, then also the program will run. Let me delete that for the time being. Okay, or let me delete that. So this is being called as a Java bytecode. So if I run again Java sample, if I run, you can see hi Debabrata Guha is printing, because once you compile something, the bytecode will be generated, and bytecode is environment independent. So if I copy and paste this, if I send this bytecode file, means .class file, to your mail ID, you can simply download that and you can try to put that inside some folder and just simply run. You do not need to compile, you can directly run this class file. That is why bytecode is environment independent, platform independent. But if I bring that Java file once again, sample.java, if I directly send that to you, it might work in your machine, it might not work. Suppose your machine, you are running in Mac, or you are running in Linux system, or you are running in some Android device. It might work or it might not work. But this bytecode will always work. So that's why it is platform independent. And this is one of the interview questions as well today. What is bytecode? Bytecode is a file that is not human readable. It is close to the machine part, and it is something, the importance of this file is because it is platform independent. Once you compile, this bytecode is generated. Once you run, it always refers to the .class file, means the bytecode. It never refers to the compiler never refers to .java file. After compiling, after generating this class file, you can delete this file as well. Still our program will run because our program always refer to this .class file. Okay, so that is bytecode. But again, my intention is not going into the bytecode part. So here in sample.java, I can bring some modifications as well. I can take some input, I can do anything. I can print something like int. I can introduce one array, a simple array. I can, okay, not int, I will mark it as string a, and I can put something like India, I can put something like UK, put something like USA. So I can bring one array. So I can do anything actually. So I can put something like Canada. You can print multiple name, and last of all, I can bring something called Australia, something like that. So I have introduced 5 string values here, and after that, I'm going to print those names. So I can write something system dot, or I can write something for int I equals to 0, I less than a dot length, and I equals to I plus 1. I'm just trying to print all the values inside. So if I can print my name, I'm sure everything I can do. So I have just introduced one array and I'm trying to run. I'm just save the file. And okay, sorry, I still am my printing my name. So it should be A of I, suppose. If I save the file by pressing Ctrl plus S, and let me close this file and let me compile this one once again. So Java, sample.java. Now we have some array program inside, and now let me run this once again. So here, obviously, these values will be printed. Uh, five country name, because we have written that inside. But what will happen if I delete this array? If I delete this array and now I'm trying to print, obviously it will say like A doesn't exist. Obviously it will say like that. Let me show you that. If I try to run this code without defining A, obviously it is going to give some error. So you can see it is already saying cannot find the symbol, what is A? Cannot find symbol. So it is giving some error. So let me try to use this one, this array, this time. So let me put a name like args.length, and here as well args.I. Now what is args? From where the value is coming, and what is the data inside args? I don't know what is the data inside args as of now. But if I try to compile that, it will compile successfully. You can see it is not giving any error anymore. You can see it is compiled successfully because args exist in this context. And from the very first class, we are using this message. But what are the values? That is a major question. What are the values then of args? From where args are coming? Previously, I have introduced one variable, one array like A. A was containing few countries' name like India, UK, US, something like that. But now, what is the content of args? Basically, it is empty by nature. So if it is empty, if I run that program now, it is not going to print anything. It will simply not printing anything because args is blank. But if you want to put some value in args, that array, you have to mention, like after Java sample, you have to mention all the names like US, UK, you can mention India, you can mention Canada, and mention Australia, and something like that. If I enter now, the same value will be printed. So it means at the time of running a program, you can use the variables as many as you can. After the running the code, Java sample, in this command line itself, you can pass some message, and that message will be stored directly into args. It will take those input at the runtime itself, and you have to provide those values after writing this code. Java sample, after writing this code, you have to type few names. Okay, let me type my name. Suppose Debabrata space Guha space suppose binary space world. If I enter that, you can see here it will be printed Debabrata Guha binary world. So 4 values. You can pass as many messages as you want. Okay, so there is nothing major thing happening with this command line approach. You can run any program. If any single program that is running in BlueJ, but it is not running in command line argument, you can tell me. But I have just used command line argument. To use command line argument, it is not a challenge. Believe me, I have used in my college days. There was no BlueJ at that time. There was no online compiler. There was no internet connection even. So I used to solve the program by writing in Notepad, and I was just running in this command prompt. And from there, the name came like command line argument. At the time of running a program, if you run Java sample, it is the simple way of running program. But at the time of running Java sample, if you give some input here, that means it is being called as a command line argument. So using Notepad and command line is not a challenge. You can run any program. If it is not running somehow, because you are using command line argument, because you are using Notepad, just let me know. It will not be an issue. It is the same thing. You are just writing the program inside the Notepad, not in BlueJay. That is the only difference. But the program will work in a similar way. But command line argument is something new. At the time of running the code, like Java sample, you can provide some values there in the command line. And that is because of it is being called as a command line argument. If you want, you can change the name of this file as well. You can give something like A. And if it is A, you can print the A variable, A array as well. You can see. So from the very starting, I have not touched this part. So it can be any name. It can be with the any name. It is not like it has to be args always. It can be any name. So let me save this file once again. And let me compile this one. So it will be just a simple thing. And now let me run this Java sample. Let me put something hi, hello, something like that. So it will print hi and hello. So whatever I'm giving input in the command line as an argument, so those has been received here itself. So you can try to do first some programs in Notepad. If you feel like, okay, it is good, it is still working, then you can test this with command line argument. In case of any error, just let me know. But you have to remember one thing, this class sample and this file name sample.java, those two names should be the same. Okay, means the class which is holding public static void main, that class name and the Notepad file name should be same. So those are the mistakes I used to do initially with 4 or 5 times. After that, I was okay, like, okay, I have to give the name same, something like that. So, okay, let me close all this. So I hope it is clear what I'm trying to mean by command line argument. Okay, and one more thing I want to mention here. If you write CD, you can go forward, something like that. You can go inside of a folder. Suppose if you are writing CD folder 1, F1. So you are going inside of a folder named F1. It means, so if you are writing CD dot dot, that means you are going outside one step. You are coming out of a folder one step only. If you are writing CD slash, that means you are directly jumping into C drive. Directly jumping into C drive. If you use dir, you can see all the folders. You can see all the files and folders under that folder, under the folder you are currently in. Some of those information will be needed to work with the command line argument. And again, the last of all, the Java is using for compilation. You have to mention the file extension, and Java is being used to run the program. That's all. Okay. In Java, you have to use file extension as well. Means something like .java. Okay. I hope it is clear. If something is not running, just let me know. Someone will help you if you write it in the comment section. Okay. So those are the things. So, and these are the important questions. So command line argument, command prompt is traditional way to run the programs. Let's run any program using command prompt. You can run any program. And you have seen how to give some input using the command line during the run itself. So now, what is the meaning of the full line? So if I start with public, so public means, okay, sorry, if I start with the public means it is an access specifier. We have discussed that in the previous class. You can check, public makes everything accessible. Either the file can be inside a package, inside some different folder. It can be in some different file, wherever it is. If you write public in front of that, it will be accessible from anywhere. You can probably, if you are following my playlist, if you have gone through the last class, like encapsulation class, you have already explored that and you are convinced. If you are not, if you do not know why public has the access in everywhere, I will request you to go through the last class. So public is an access specifier, and it confirms, like if you write main function anywhere, it will be accessible. So that is the use of public. What do you mean by static? Static makes only one version of the main method. You cannot have object to object. You cannot have different version of main. So it is only one version of main method. And that is why, as a result, you do not need to create any object, or you do not need to give any object reference to call main. You do not need to write like obj1.main, obj2.main. You can directly call main because it is static. Okay. So we have just discussed that. What is void? We have learned that in a chapter of function. If you can remember, void means main function do not return anything. Main function is not returning anything. You cannot write anything at the end, like return something. You have that idea from the function class itself. If you do not have, if you have any problem, I will request you to go through the function class. In function, either if you are returning some integer, we have to write int something. But here, main function doesn't return anything, so we will give void at the starting. What is mean by main? Main is a function. With that name, only one function can exist. You cannot have multiple main function in a program. So a program always looks for a main function because it looks for a starting point. So main is the starting point. Okay, so all the programs always search for the main function. Okay, if we do not have a main function, if you can remember the example of bank class, we need to create the object, and everything we need to do by ourselves. We need to call withdraw, we need to call uh, uh, balance inquiry, we need to call submit, everything we need to do by ourselves. But if the program finds any main function, so everything will be done automatically. Okay, so main function is something a program always looks for. The next one is the string args. As we have just discovered few minutes back, string args is just a command line argument. Means you have to mention, you can mention if you want, you can mention, you can pass some variables at the time of running the program. And at the time of running of the program, those messages will be called as a command line argument. So it will be stored in some array whose name is args. If you want, you can change the name as well. But by default, if you write string args, this is an string array which will hold all those values that has been given at the time of execution of that program. So that's the thing. It is not like a traditional way of taking input. In the traditional way of taking input, you have to write something like a equals to sc.next, something like that. But here we are just passing some messages, and it is required sometimes. Suppose you are running in some environment and you need to pass some date. So if I am running that program today, today's date will be different. If I'm running that, suppose tomorrow or after 2 or 3 years, the date will be different as well. So at the runtime, we need to pass that date. It is not something will be taken from the user. So in those cases, if some environment related details or some date related details, some log related details, if you want to pass something, then you need to pass it at the runtime. It will not dependent on the user input. It is being called as a command line input or command line argument. So that is the full meaning of public static void main. And believe me, it is pretty much important program, important question for the Viva, for the interview, for the exam questions. And I faced this question in my first interview in Cognizant, my first interview in my life itself. So I faced this question at that interview. So the last topic is, suppose if I want to create the math class now, because you have seen in the math class, we never declare any object. We directly call math functions. So we will try to do something with few of the math function. Yeah, I really do not know much mathematics. I'm not aware of those mathematics complicated rules, but I will just try to. My intention is not to show you how for loop works, how if works, how we can solve complicated logic. So we have given enough time on those part. But today, my plan is to just show you the structure, how it behaves. So I have chosen few easy programs, easy functions like pow, ceiling, floor, and apps. First, let me show you how these things behaves. So let me create a new file. Suppose let me create a new file called math demo, something like that. And here, let me create something like class math demo. Create something public static void main. Today onwards, we know the meaning of public static void main. But yeah, high chances that you will forget that in few days. But okay, let me try to run something, some simple math operations. So we can write something like math dot pow probably, and I can write 5,3. I'm not going for any fractional value power solving thing. I'm just uh, using the simple one. My intention is just to show you how class and object works. My intention is not like how complicated logic works. So if I run something like 7.3, and if I give something called floor with 7.3, and here if I run math apps absolute value, and it is also suppose minus 7.7. So in the first case, it will print the power of 5 and 3. It will be 125, if I'm not wrong. If I want to print any ceiling value of 7.3. So 7.3 is being called as a floor, means as a floating point value. Okay, so if you imagine your room, currently you have joined, currently you are in that room. The ceiling of 7.3 is 8. And the floor of that room is being called as a 7. So obviously 7.3 will be floating around somewhere in the middle of floor and the ceiling. And that is why these point values are being called as a floating point numbers. I will try to pass all the important meaning and important definitions and everything by the regular classes. So till the date, we probably, if you do not know from some outside or some from your school or college classes, then it is different, or from internet. If you are solely following my classes, I have not passed this message, or I have not discussed about why these numbers are being called floating point number. Floating point means if you consider your floor as 7 and if you consider your ceiling as 8, this 7.3 will be floating somewhere between your ceiling and floor. So that's why it will be called as a floating point number. So now if I want to check the ceiling, it should print 8. If I want to check floor of 7.3, it should print 7. And an absolute value always print 7.7 in a positive. Okay. So let me run this. So 125, 8, 7, and 7.7. That should be the output. Let me check. Yeah, 125, 8, 7, and 7.5. Now, I do not want to use this math class. I want to use some math class that can be designed by us. So let me write my math. So whatever will be created by us, I will write it here. So how to design these methods in our class? If I want to compile, it will say my math doesn't exist. So let me quickly create a class called my math. And here I will define all the methods as static, because I'm not going to create anything like my math obj new my math. So I'm not going to use any object. So I can directly use one version of code that is called static. And I will write something static double. It will return the double value. All of them return the double value. If you remember the output, all of them return the double value. So I'm just returning double and pow. So index, everything is same. Look, everything is same. Instead of math, I am using my math. That's all. So index int y, and I can write something. Okay, like double p equals to 1.0 or 1 only, it will work. Or int I equals to 1 to I less than equals to y, I equals to I plus 1, and every time I'll be doing t equals to p into x. That's all, and at the end I will return p, and that should work. Why it is giving the error? Class interface or something. Okay, sorry, I have written a wrong spelling. Yeah, now it should give the correct one. So you can see how is working now. It is giving an error in ceiling. So let me write something for ceiling as well. So what will be the answer of ceiling? So static double ceiling. So these are the conventional math mechanism. So I am trying to build that by my own logic. In future days, we will keep trying to do the things like that. So I can just write int p or some variable. I can make it as int of x plus 1. Int of x in bracket. So it will become 7. 7.3 will become, if I make the integer, it will become 7. And after that, plus 1. And at the time of returning, I will just return double version of p. So it will be something 7.8.0 will return. So the same thing, if I want to get the floor, it will be that simple. I will just write floor. 7.3 will be returned as 7 in that case. So if I want to return as a 7, I do not need to do plus 1. I will just take the integer version of 7.3, that is 7, and I will return that 7. That's all. And last, not the least, it is absolute value. So in case of absolute value, I will just check if the value is positive or negative. If the value is positive, let me write it. If x is greater than equals to 0, then I will return x. And else, if it is less than 0, I will just multiply with minus x, means minus 7.3 into minus 1 will be becoming 7.3 in positive. So that I will return. Okay, so that's the thing I will be doing. Okay, sorry, I have done something wrong probably. Okay, I removed the floor version. Let me write it once again. I removed it accidentally. So let me write the floor version once again. Floor, yeah, and I do not need to give plus 1. So these are the simple logic for loop, if logic. So we have done it from the very first class. So my intention is not to discuss with this, discuss on this if and for how I have built that. But my intention is to create my own math class. And you can see I have successfully created my own math class here. And if I run, it should work. And as it is static, I can skip mentioning the object. I can directly call it. We are getting the same result like the original math class. But yeah, math class is more complicated. Power function is more complicated. But my intention is not to do complicated logic. We have done enough complicated logic in our logical programming part. But it is a theoretical part. It is an object-oriented part. So here I'm just trying to check how math class is built. You can see, if we put some critical logic, so also we are able to create the math class by our own. If we know more mathematics, we can create it by our own. The structure is actually looks something like this. And we just call it, in case of my math, we just call the same class and function using math.pow, math.ceiling, math.floor, kind of that. So the structure, now we know how it is being created. You can try to create math class by your own as an exercise. You can try to do that with some complicated logic as well. It requires some complicated logic. I'm not that smart in mathematics. That's why I am not able to solve all those mathematical concepts. But you can try to do the same as well. You can try to build some other classes as well, or some other methods you can invent, like factorial method that is not currently under math class. So you can define some method like that, which involves some mathematics. So anyway, that's all. If any programs is not running, if you are having any confusion with any of the codes, you can comment below, and some of the moderators will going to reply you on the top of that quickly. If you are not getting the reply, you can send me a mail. You can contact through this Facebook group as well. So there are several ways. So yeah, you just need to practice all of them, because it is very normal that you will forget the meaning of static, the meaning of command line argument, the meaning of bytecode after just few days, after few classes, at least 2 or 3 classes. I can say you will be forgetting, many of you will forget the meaning of static. Okay. So for that, you have to practice all of those things that I have shown. And in front of the interviewer, never try to write the complicated program. Just try to present all the theories in a simple coding itself. Okay. And we have all the questions listed, all the interview question listed here as well. You can search in binary world Debabrata Guha in this portal. If you check something called, I forget the name again, Java concepts, I guess. If you search with this name, you will get all the interview questions listed here. You can see what do you mean by modularity, what do you mean by inheritance. Even you can read it out from any portals available, but I have tried to accumulate all the interview or all the Viva questions here, so you can go through that as well. So, but you can do it from anywhere. Okay, it is not like you have to remember it from here. Just do not memorize the definition. Just try to understand the concept as well. That is my request. And that's why I have tried to give all those examples in a simple, using simple examples, simple codings. So yeah, that's all for the day. No need to extend the class. So just practice. Let me know in case of any difficulties. Bye for the day.